Ladies and gentlemen, we gather here today in the presence of a mighty God. A God who formed the heavens, who set the stars in their place, and who in His infinite wisdom ordained a plan for each and every one of us. He is not a distant force, not a silent observer, but a loving Father who knows the deepest desires of our hearts. He sees our struggles, our hopes, our dreams, and He knows that within each of us is a longing, a yearning for a love that is true, a connection that is divine. From the very beginning of time, God has been in the business of bringing hearts together. He is the author of love, the architect of relationships, and the one who weaves the beautiful tapestry of our lives. It is not by accident that souls are drawn to one another. It is not mere chance that two hearts beat in harmony. It is the divine hand of God orchestrating a love that is greater than anything this world can offer. Faith, love, and destiny. These are not just words. They are the very foundation upon which God builds His purpose in our lives. Faith is the trust we place in Him, even when the road seems uncertain. Love is the gift He bestows, teaching us to give, to sacrifice, to cherish. And destiny, it is the grand design of God, the path He sets before us, leading us to the people, the places, the moments that shape our eternal story. Today, I want to remind you that no matter where you are, no matter what you have been through, God is working. He is moving in ways you cannot yet see. The love you seek, the connection you long for is not beyond His reach. If you trust Him, if you surrender your heart to His perfect plan, He will lead you to the one He has prepared for you. Because when God writes a love story, it is not just for a lifetime, it is for eternity. Faith is the foundation upon which all things in our lives must be built, especially when it comes to love and relationships. It is through faith that we trust in God's perfect plan, even when we do not see the full picture. In a world that constantly tells us to take control, to seek out love on our own terms, and to rush ahead without waiting, faith calls us to surrender. It asks us to believe that God is working, even in seasons of loneliness, even in times of waiting, even when we feel forgotten. Faith means trusting that God knows the desires of our hearts because He placed them there. It is understanding that before we ever longed for love, before we ever dreamed of companionship, God had already written our story. He knew who we would become, He knew what we would need, and He knew exactly how to lead us to the right person at the right time. But trusting in that requires us to walk by faith and not by sight. It requires us to silence the doubts, to resist the pressure of the world, and to hold on to the promises of God, even when our circumstances tell us otherwise. Many people struggle with waiting on God's timing. They grow weary, they become impatient, and they start to believe that if something isn't happening according to their schedule, then maybe it isn't meant to be. But faith reminds us that God's timing is never wrong. It is never delayed. It is never uncertain. Every moment of waiting is a moment of preparation. Every unanswered question is an opportunity to grow in trust. Every season of singleness is a season where God is working within us, shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for the love that He has ordained. Faith also means believing that God's plan is greater than our own. Sometimes we think we know what we want. We have an image in our minds of the kind of person we should be with, the way love should happen, and the way our story should unfold. But God, in His infinite wisdom, sees beyond our limited understanding. He knows what is best for us, not just for the moment, but for eternity. Faith calls us to let go of our own expectations and surrender to His perfect will. It means being willing to trust that even if things don't happen the way we imagined, God's way is always better. There are times when faith will be tested. There will be moments when doubts creep in, when fear whispers that maybe love isn't meant for us, when disappointment makes us question if God is really listening. But faith does not rely on feelings. Faith stands firm in the truth of who God is. It holds on to His promises even when emotions try to shake us. It reminds us that He is a God of love, a God of purpose, a God who never forgets His children. Faith is the foundation, the rock upon which we build our trust in Him, knowing that His ways are perfect and His plans are for our good. Love is the greatest gift that God has given to humanity. It is not just an emotion, not just a fleeting feeling, but a powerful divine force that reflects the very nature of God Himself. The Bible tells us that God is love, and everything He does is rooted in that love. From the creation of the world to the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, love has always been at the center of His plan. It is through love that He draws us to Himself, and it is through love that He brings people together. When we talk about love, we must understand that it is more than just attraction or romance. The world often portrays love as something that is temporary, something that comes and goes based on emotions and circumstances. But the love that comes from God is different. It is strong, unwavering, and eternal. It does not fade with time, nor is it dependent on how we feel in the moment. True love, the kind that God ordains between soulmates, is built on something much deeper. It is built on sacrifice, on selflessness, on a willingness to give rather than just receive. Godly love teaches us to put others before ourselves. It is not about what we can gain, but about how we can serve. Jesus demonstrated the greatest love when He laid down His life for us, and He calls us to love others with that same heart. In relationships, this means choosing patience when things are difficult, choosing kindness when tempers rise, choosing forgiveness even when we have been hurt. It means loving not just when it is easy, but also when it requires effort. The love that God creates between two people is meant to reflect His love for us. It is a love that strengthens, encourages, and builds up. It is a love that seeks to honor God above all else. When two people come together in a relationship that is centered on Him, their love becomes something greater than themselves. It becomes a testimony of His goodness, a light in a world that desperately needs to see what true love looks like. But this kind of love does not happen by accident. It requires a heart that is first filled with God's love. Before we can truly love someone else, we must first understand how deeply we are loved by our Creator. We must allow His love to transform us, to heal the broken places, to remove fear and insecurity. Only then can we love another person in the way that God intended, with a heart that is whole, secure, and ready to give without condition. The love that God gives is a love that endures. It is not based on convenience, but on commitment. It does not waver when trials come, but stands firm in faith. It is a love that reflects His glory, a love that brings joy, peace, and fulfillment. When God brings two people together, it is not just for their happiness, but for a greater purpose, to demonstrate His love to the world. God's hand in relationships is undeniable. From the very beginning of creation, He has been in the business of bringing hearts together according to His divine plan. When He created Adam, He saw that it was not good for man to be alone, so He fashioned Eve as his perfect companion. This was not a random act or a coincidence. It was a purposeful design. In the same way, God continues to weave together the stories of those who trust in Him, leading them to the relationships He has ordained for their lives. Many people believe that finding love is solely about personal effort, about being in the right place at the right time, making the right choices, or pursuing relationships through their own understanding. While personal responsibility is important, the truth is that God is the ultimate matchmaker. He knows who belongs in our lives and when the right time is for them to enter. His wisdom far exceeds our own. And when we surrender our relationships to Him, we can trust that He will guide us toward what is best. One of the greatest examples of God's hand in relationships is seen in the story of Isaac and Rebekah. Abraham sent his servant on a mission to find a wife for his son, and instead of relying on his own instincts, the servant prayed for God's guidance. He asked for a clear sign, and God, in His faithfulness, led him directly to Rebekah. She was not chosen by accident. She was the one God had prepared for Isaac. This story reminds us that when we seek God's direction in love, He will provide clarity. Sometimes God's involvement in relationships means closing doors that are not meant for us. It can be painful when a relationship does not work out, or when someone we care for walks away. But rather than seeing these moments as losses, we must recognize them as divine redirection. God does not withhold good things from His children. Instead, He removes what is not part of His plan to make room for something greater. Trusting His hand means believing that even rejection and disappointment are part of His protection and preparation for what is truly meant to be. God also works in relationships by preparing each person individually before bringing them together. Sometimes the reason for a delay in meeting the right person is that God is still shaping and refining both hearts. He uses seasons of singleness to teach lessons, build character, and strengthen faith. The person He has chosen for us is also going through their own journey, and in His perfect timing, He will align both paths. When God brings two people together, it is not just for their happiness, but for His purpose. A God-ordained relationship is meant to glorify Him, to reflect His love, and to serve as a testimony of His faithfulness. It is not about chance or luck. It is about divine orchestration. Those who trust in His plan will find that His timing, His ways, and His choices are always far greater than anything they could have arranged on their own. The power of prayer in relationships cannot be overstated. Prayer is not just a ritual or a last resort when things become difficult. It is the foundation of a relationship that seeks to honor God. It is through prayer that we invite God into our love story, seeking His wisdom, His guidance, and His blessing over our hearts and our future. When we make prayer a priority in our relationships, we align ourselves with His will rather than relying on our own limited understanding. From the very beginning, God designed relationships to be centered on Him. Without His presence, love becomes something based on human emotions, which can be fragile and unpredictable. But when two people come together in prayer, they strengthen their bond in a way that is not easily broken. They build a foundation that is rooted in faith rather than feelings, allowing God to shape their journey according to His perfect plan. One of the most important aspects of prayer in relationships is seeking God's will before entering into them. Many people rush into love based on emotions, attraction, or worldly standards, only to find themselves hurt and confused when things do not work out. But prayer allows us to pause and ask God, is this the person you have for me? It gives us clarity and peace, preventing us from making decisions based on temporary desires rather than long-term purpose. Prayer also plays a crucial role in preparing us for the right relationship. Before we can fully love someone else, we must first allow God to work within us. Praying for personal growth, healing, and spiritual maturity helps us become the kind of person who can love selflessly and wholeheartedly. Many people pray for the right partner, but forget to ask God to mold them into the right partner as well. Prayer is not just about asking God to bring someone into our lives. It is also about asking Him to refine our hearts so that we are ready when that person arrives. When two people come together in a relationship, prayer becomes the glue that holds them together through every season. There will be moments of joy and moments of difficulty, times of certainty and times of doubt. But a couple that prays together learns to rely on God rather than their own strength. They bring their concerns, struggles, and decisions before Him, trusting that He will guide them in the right direction. Prayer also strengthens love by fostering humility and understanding. When we pray for our partner, we begin to see them through God's eyes. We learn to love them with patience, grace, and forgiveness. Instead of reacting in anger or frustration, we bring our concerns before God, asking Him to help us respond with wisdom and compassion. This not only deepens our love, but also prevents conflicts from becoming divisions. The power of prayer is not just in what it does for a relationship, but in how it draws both individuals closer to God. A relationship rooted in prayer is not easily shaken because it is not dependent on human strength alone. It stands firm on the promises of God, allowing His love to flow through every aspect of the journey. Walking in God's timing requires trust, patience, and surrender. In a world that encourages instant gratification, waiting for God's perfect plan can feel challenging. Many people become anxious when they do not see immediate results, especially when it comes to love and relationships. They wonder if they have been forgotten, if they need to take matters into their own hands, or if God is truly listening to the desires of their hearts. But the truth is, God's timing is never late, never early. It is always perfect. God operates on an eternal timeline, one that is not limited by human expectations. He sees the bigger picture, the details we cannot comprehend. When He calls us to wait, it is not because He is withholding something from us, but because He is preparing something far greater than we could imagine. Every season of waiting is a season of preparation. God is not just working on bringing the right person into our lives. He is also working within us, shaping us into the individuals He has called us to be. Many times people try to rush ahead of God, forcing relationships that were never meant to be. They settle for less than what God has planned because they fear being alone. But when we step outside of God's timing, we risk stepping into something that is not His best for us. A relationship that is built outside of His will may bring temporary happiness, but it will not have the lasting foundation that a God-ordained relationship has. It is far better to wait on His perfect choice than to settle for something that is not meant for us. God's timing is also about trusting that He knows what we need better than we do. We may have our own ideas about the kind of person we should be with, the way our love story should unfold, or the timeline in which things should happen. But our understanding is limited. We see only the present moment, while God sees our entire future. He knows what will bring us joy, what will challenge us to grow, and what will ultimately fulfill His purpose for our lives. Walking in God's timing requires faith, even when we do not understand. It means surrendering our plans and allowing Him to lead. It means choosing contentment in the present rather than constantly longing for the next season. Instead of seeing singleness or waiting as a burden, we should embrace it as a time of preparation. This is the season where we can grow spiritually, build strong foundations, and develop the character that will be essential in a God-honoring relationship. One of the greatest challenges in waiting is resisting comparison. It is easy to look at others who have found love and wonder why it has not happened for us yet. But God's plan is unique for each person. Just because someone else's story is unfolding differently does not mean that God has forgotten us. His timing is not a punishment, but a divine orchestration. The waiting period is not about delay, but about preparation for something greater than we can imagine. Destiny is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of divine design. When it comes to love and relationships, God has a purpose that extends far beyond what we see in the present moment. His plan is not just about bringing two people together for companionship, but about fulfilling a greater purpose through that union. Love, when guided by God, is not merely for our happiness, but for His glory. Every relationship He ordains serves a role in His eternal plan, shaping not just the lives of the individuals involved, but also impacting the world around them. Many people think of destiny as something that happens automatically, as if two soulmates will just stumble upon each other at the perfect time without any effort. While it is true that God orchestrates divine connections, He also calls us to walk in obedience and faith. Destiny is not passive. It is something we step into by following His guidance, seeking His will, and preparing our hearts for what He has planned. When we align ourselves with God's purpose, we position ourselves to receive the blessings He has prepared for us. One of the most beautiful aspects of a God-ordained relationship is that it reflects His love for us. When two people come together in faith, their relationship becomes a testimony of His goodness. It is not just about romance. It is about partnership in fulfilling His calling. A marriage built on faith is not just about personal happiness, but about serving God together, growing spiritually, and making an impact that reaches beyond themselves. This is why destiny in relationships is not just about finding someone we love, but about finding someone who will walk with us in fulfilling God's plan. However, destiny does not mean that everything will be easy or without challenges. Even in relationships that are part of God's plan, there will be struggles, trials, and moments of uncertainty. But when love is built on the foundation of faith, it stands strong through every season. It is not dependent on emotions or circumstances, but on the unshakable truth that God has brought two people together for a reason. When difficulties arise, it is faith that sustains love, reminding both individuals that they are part of something bigger than themselves. God's plan for love is also eternal. Earthly relationships are a reflection of the ultimate relationship we have with Him. Marriage is a symbol of Christ's love for His church, a love that is sacrificial, unconditional, and everlasting. When we enter into relationships with this perspective, we begin to understand that love is not just about the present moment, but about preparing for eternity. The choices we make in love, the way we treat our partner, and the foundation we build in faith all have eternal significance. Understanding destiny in relationships means trusting that God is in control. It means surrendering our desires to Him, allowing Him to lead us, and believing that He has written a love story that is far greater than anything we could imagine. His plans are never random. They are intentional, purposeful, and designed to bring joy, fulfillment, and ultimately glory to His name. When we place our faith in God's plan, trust in His timing, and seek His will through prayer, we open our hearts to the kind of love that is not built on fleeting emotions, but on divine purpose. Love is not just about finding someone. It is about becoming the person God has called us to be so that we can fully receive and give love as He intended. True love, the kind that God ordains, is not based on chance or human effort, but on His perfect design. God connects soulmates, not just for happiness, but for a higher calling, to reflect His love, to strengthen each other in faith, and to fulfill a purpose that extends beyond the relationship itself. He knows the desires of our hearts because He placed them there. And when we trust Him fully, we can walk in confidence, knowing that His plans are always greater than our own. So, whether you are in a season of waiting in a relationship or seeking clarity, remember this: God's love story for you is already written. Your responsibility is to trust, to prepare, and to surrender, believing that at the right time, in the right way, He will bring together what He has ordained. When that happens, it will not just be love. It will be destiny fulfilled through the hands of a faithful and loving God.